All right, welcome to the kickoff for the project. Let's get started. The project is, it says Urban Ecology, Environmental Change. It should say Minor Urban Ecology Project Environmental Change. My excuses, but this project is definitely called Environmental Change. And as you see on the picture, uh, the the project will be we're working with ecology, landscape ecology, and is a general term. And more specifically, we'll be looking at the sand dunes of the Netherlands, and then specifically which sand dune. We'll be looking at the sand dunes just north of Tilburg, called the Loonse and Drunense dunes. Yes, of course. Yeah, 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 yeah. So this, in general, very broad strokes, this project is there's no lab work, but there is more field work. And yeah, so one of the most beautiful natural parks in the Netherlands, if you ask me. And I was just there a week or two ago, called the Loonse and Dunes, and it's a very nice place. It's a very, very nice place. If you haven't gone, you can ride horses. It's a really nice place. So anyway, uh, that's what we're looking at. But they have a problem, and you'll probably be not surprised. I mentioned it a little bit in the coursework, environmental change, that nitrogen deposition has been a problem in the Netherlands and everywhere around the world, but especially in the Netherlands. And what happens is these sand dunes should be very nutrient poor, but because of all the nitrogen that's been coming down, um, the soil has actually turned to nutrient rich, and so the sand is being taken over by algae, by grasses, and by eventually by trees. And goes very, very slowly, and nobody notices it year after year. But if you look over a period of 100 to 150 years, you see a huge part of the sand dunes have been covered up by grass or even trees. So what you see in the background, the large pine trees have grown in the last 100 years, and almost 100% because of nitrogen with deposition, which we have been using because of our cars, etc. I'm having this problem again. Anyway, so this is one of the sand dunes which has been the least affected. This is called Kootwijkerzand, and this is what the Loons and Dunes Down should look like. They should be very open sands. This it looks just like dark sand. It's actually very small plants. If you were last year, you took biodiversity with me. They're called bryophytes. Remember the very, very, very old plants. Uh, they have also called moss mats because they grow in like a large mat, very thin, very large, and just a little bit of shrubs. This is what a natural inland sand dune should look like, but unfortunately does not look like. So, as you said, what the sand is kept together by algae. So if you walk through the sand, especially inland sand dunes, the dunes themselves are quite hard, and when you walk through them, they kind of crunch. And the way that happens is because the sand is kept together by algae, which you may think algae that grows in water. Yes, it's true they grow in water, but they also grow on the ground and in sand quite a bit, and they're the ones who keep the sand dunes together, so it doesn't blow away. So we're quite happy with the algae. The problem, because algae doesn't need a lot to survive, just a little bit of water, and there's plenty of water in the Netherlands, it's not a problem, and a little bit, just a tiny, tiny bit of nitrogen, phosphorus, but not the amounts that it's coming to now. It's going way too much. So these are called succession stages. So it starts off as sand, and it eventually turns into forest. And here so are two aerial photographs, which actually you will be using in your work. So you have an aerial photograph from 1950 on the left, and an aerial photograph from 2007 on the right. And if you look, there's a huge change. This is the same place in the Lone Endurance Down. This is in the northern part. Here on the upper left, was all open sand. And now that's all been taken over by trees. So, and it doesn't, trees just don't suddenly pop up. It's a long succession. So you go from sand, you'll see the next sheet, you go from sand to like a mossy landscape, which will create the stable soil structure that trees need, and then the trees can come in. So this has gone from the very poorest of soil types, sand, to the very richest of soil types, which is forests. Not only that, but if you see here on the right, there's also grown a lot of trees here. Yeah, and you of course you had a few bushes, but now you see these bushes are covered, are surrounded by these moss mats. Yeah, so if you some ecologists divide it into more than just three, but here's what we'll be doing. So here we have a remote sensing study, which was actually over 8 areas in the Netherlands. You guys will only be doing one, so it's a lot less than what they did. And they took oil photographs from 4 different years, and you guys will be doing just 3 different years. Um, but they compared these different years. On the left, you see 1947, and the right, 1981, in the succession. So the yellow area is, oops, I'm just going to, oh yeah, microphones are on. So the left area is yellow is sand, light green is grassland, and then the dark area is heath and forest. On the left, you see obviously a dominant sand with a little bit of heath and a little bit of forest. In 1981, it's been taken over by forests. Forests are beautiful. Yeah. Yeah, thank you, Dan. Actually, I was just about to say that. I love forests. I grew up in a forest. I love forests, and especially if you're Brazilians, and we love forests. And forests are great if they're supposed to be that way, but it's not good if for biodiversity. And I'll show you shortly that the sand dunes, while they look barren, they're not. You talked about the algae, but not just the algae, the bryophytes, the tiny little plants, and the mosses and the lichens, and not just them, but the animals that live off of them are being taken over by plants that are not supposed to be there. So the biodiversity is going down. So it's not only deforestation is a global problem worldwide. That's absolutely true. But we also have to think locally what belongs there. Uh, of course, forests belong in forested regions with good soil, but if what we're doing is causing the soils to change and therefore grow the wrong type of habitat, we want to stop that. And that's one part of your work is to find out how much has changed. So this researcher, this is just to let you show you an example of somebody who did this. This is, I don't believe this is the lone sand dunes down. It might be the general one of all sand dunes in the Netherlands. As you see in 1950, from the aerial photograph in 1950, uh, the coverage of hectares of sand was quite high. And this study was done around 2000, 2005, I believe. And through the photographs, they noticed a change in coverage in hectares of sand going down. Grassland did grow up a little bit in the study, but the heath and forest has dramatically increased, and everything after around 2000, 2005 is projected. Yeah. So if we had done nothing, the sand would disappear completely in this projection by about 2030. And around 2030, not only would the sand be gone, but also the grassland, which is also natural, so it's a combination of sand and grassland, would also start decreasing. And this entire area, which was dominated by sand and a little bit of grassland, will turn in the next 50 years uh, just into forest. And I love forests, but you know, there's a right time and place for everything. Okay. Yeah, yeah. Well, it's but it's difficult. It's just like greenhouse gases. We definitely measure that the temperature is rising on the Earth's planet, and we know. Oops, it did it to me again. Blackboard. Sorry, I'm back. So we know. Did everybody? No, they're all still there. It's just me. Anyway, we know that greenhouse gases are a problem, uh, but a lot of people don't believe it because it's not directly correlated. If I hit you with my car and you died, there's a direct correlation. I hit you with my car. But if my car um, brings out nitrogen into the air and then that falls on the ground and changes the environment, you can't film that. These are processes that take 100 years, at least 50 years. And this study was just over 50 years. Um, so a lot of people are like, well, I'm not completely sure. It is, so they do a lot of soil measurements, which you guys won't be doing. You can use the data that that I have in the articles to hopefully you will do that to say that this is the cause. Um, but there's some people who don't believe it, and who can you think who don't believe it? Car companies, farmers, because they're the people. These mega industrial cows. You don't even see them. There are huge buildings with thousands of cows in them. Uh, yes, and these mega stalls they're called, and they they let nitrogen into the air. It might be shocking to you, but there's a map here I'll show you about the concentrations of nitrogen in Dutch air. It's probably one of the biggest problems facing the Netherlands at the time. Yeah, but methane is released, but also nitrogen. Poop. Lots of things. Termites, cows, yeah, methane also, but nitrogen if we poop. Cows, we have lots of cows. There are not only cows, pigs. There are 17 or 18 million pigs in the Netherlands. You never see a pig in the Netherlands, but there are more pigs than people because they're all in these huge mega stalls, um, and they poop, and it gets into the water, and the water evaporates, and that's how the nitrogen gets into the air, and directly by cars, the car emissions. Have you been on the highways in the Netherlands? I can tell you, it's a nightmare. It's extremely dense. It took me 2 hours to get from Utrecht yesterday because there's traffic. 2 hours. It should take 45 minutes. There's a lot of cars in the Netherlands, and they're very um, densely packed together. Oh, so it seems that we've gone back to the beginning of the presentation. We'll skip. So these little plants are what we are trying to save. They may not look like a lot, but they're being devastated. They're being devastated. Uh, there's a message by Miriam. So what's happening over time? There's a buildup of organic acids, cow poop, let's just say, which makes more nutrients available. And this nitrate is acidic, so it's acidifying the soil. And the acidification of the soil, the addition of the nutrients, all means more plant growth. So we go in time, from bare sand and a little bit of grass to what's called pioneer vegetation. Um, and then there's the mosses and the lichens and the grasses, and then onto dwarf shrubs and trees. So that's what we talk about succession over time. Um, and this is how they put that one graph together. So they took 4 photographs from 1950, 81, 95, 2007, and they measured how much bare sand for each photograph. And they showed a linear decrease in sand, a linear increase in forests, and a slight increase in pioneer vegetation. And in 2007 would be absolutely no bare sand left. So, as people mentioned, as I mentioned, biodiversity is then heavily impacted. Oops, come on. There we go. There is a species called Campylopus interflexus, which is found in the southern hemisphere. It's actually it's an invasive species from Brazil, not just Brazil. It's found actually everywhere in the southern hemisphere, not just Brazil. It was just a slight joke for the Brazilians here. And it came around 1960, and then we first started showing up, and it just loves nitrogen. It loves acidic substrates and with lots of nutrients, which is great for Brazilian rainforests, but not so good if we're talking about the dry sand dunes of northwest Europe. So here we see on the left-hand side the normal mats that we would find in sand dunes from 50 years ago, with some species of lichens here on the left growing in between. And now here you have the Campylopus, which there's this tall thing here. Yeah, it's quite tall compared to this tiny little lichen, which you might even see here in the photograph. It's that small compared. Yeah, it just grows taller and cuts out all the nutrients. It never sort of cannot reach the soil anymore. And here you have in the normal vegetation, or the vegetation that's inherent to the Netherlands, you have 15.2 species. And then the Campylopus vegetation maps, there are only 10 species, including Campylopus. And it strangles the lichens out completely. So this is how it is. And this is closer looked at. Here's the sand substrate. Here's the Campylopus. It's quite tall relative to the lichens here. Yeah. So these are the natural ones, which are from the species that are from Northwest Europe, and they just can't compete. The Campylopus grows above it. Yeah, and here's another picture of the mat. Not only does it kill it when it's growing, but once it's done growing, which is kind of funny. They grow on top of each other, so you can kind of see it. Here is the root of the first generation, and here's the second generation, and then there's going to be a third generation. So if anything wants to grow in between the mat of the Campylopus, it has to grow all the way through 3 generations of basically the dead Campylopus, which is slowly deteriorating. So obviously this strangles the normal Dutch species. Here's just some more pretty pictures of sand dunes. I have lots and lots of these pictures. It's a beautiful area. Okay, so here we go. This is the evidence which I was talking about. What people have done is they've taken here the ratio of the Campylopus mats on the left. This is the you could put it in percentage, or you could put it in depth or area. And this is the concentration of atmospheric ammonium, which can be measured by just detectors. And they've shown that from 2006 to 2012, this as the concentrations in the atmospheric ammonium increases, the amount of Campylopus also increases. And where it's very abundant, so there's lots and lots of Campylopus, there's a lot of ammonia. And when there's less ammonia, there's less dominant. So this is what we call nitrogen deposition. Here is a map of the year 2000 for the concentrations of nitrogen in the air. So that includes NOx, with some kind of nitrate. Quite often that comes from exhaust pipes of your car, but also ammonia, and this comes from the gas pipes of cows and chickens and pigs and people, of course. And we see here is the highest concentration of nitrogen. Uh, and the Lonesome Dunes of Douna are, I believe, right about here. Yeah, so in a rather high nitrogen area, nitrogen that comes falling out of the sky. And can anybody tell me how does it fall from the sky? It may sounds like a obvious question. How would the nitrogen get fall? Yeah, just rain. Yeah, precipitation. Exactly. It's just rain. And you're also right. So the cow's poop gets in the water evaporates, and the water then rains. It's not that the cows don't necessarily have to go to the forest, to the sand dunes, to drop their nitrogen load. It gets there just by normal atmospheric conditions. Yeah, just normal atmospheric conditions. All right. So now we are getting there. This is the link. So nitrogen deposition uh, is not did not significantly affect the bare sand, but it is relatively high in the studies. And because the nitrogen itself does not do anything to the sand, it just lets things like pioneer mosses and lichens grow, especially this exotic species from the southern hemisphere. And this has been studied many, many times. And here's the nitrogen of the soil. So where there is high amounts of nitrogen, there are lots of Polytrichium and Campylopus. No, there's a question. Let's see. What's the question? Oh, yeah, it was the answer to my question, actually. Okay, I'm going to skip that because all of this evidence is in one of the articles. Um, yeah. So here are the conclusions of this study. Before I go on to your project, I want to get to the project because I've been talking for a half an hour and about background. Oh, did it again. Okay, sorry about that. I got kicked off again. Don't I think it might be I'm not sure what issue it is, to be honest. It says using the connection from the internet. That is a annoyance. Okay, conclusions. So the conclusions are the bare sand is being depleted. That's measurable. So remember, in our course of environmental change, there are things that you can absolutely measure, just like we know that the ice in the glaciers is receding. It's not a debate. It's measurable. So we can measure that the bare sand is depleting. We can also measure that there's Campylopus, which is invasive species into the sand dunes. We also know that Campylopus likes high nitrogen levels and it can replace the normal species. And we can measure the nitrogen levels uh, that they are increasing. So here the conclusion is nitrogen levels should be increased before restoration measures become effective. Yeah, hacks. Maybe being hacked by the cow industry. So how do we do that? How can we lower nitrogen levels? Anybody have ideas? Can we scrub? That actually yes, we can. but it doesn't stop the problem. The problem is the deposition. So you're right. Restorative measures, and Rutger, I see that. Yeah, yeah, exactly, Rutger. So, but those are that's the cure, but I mean, it's treating the symptoms of the problem, right? It's like when it makes sense. I mean, if you have a headache, you take an aspirin. But if you are getting a headache because of too much noise or something, well, you can keep on taking aspirin, or you can turn off the noise. So how do we stop nitrogen getting in the air in the first place? Yeah, emissions. So emissions have to go down, and that's very difficult. Uh, well, there are things that we can do on our own, and that's great. We can going vegetarian. If everybody turned vegetarian, it would help. But that doesn't help completely, because then there are the issue of cars. Remember that cows are a problem, but cars are a problem too. So what they've done is, of course, there are very, very highly controlled nitrogen maps, which you're not going to be getting into. That's a completely different project. But on the provincial level, they have people who study the land, and you can only do so much on the land. So you can't just build a new mega industrial cow building. You have to ask the province, can I do that? And the province says, no, you cannot. Then there comes the government who says, we want to, um, we want to go to, we want to have a new highway that goes from Tilburg to Amsterdam. Then the province says, no, you do not, because that would promote more cars, there's more nitrogen in the air. So believe it or not, maybe it's very different I know it's different for the United States, Brazil, and Latvia, I don't know, but every square millimeter of the Netherlands is highly controlled. And it's not just controls of uh, can I can I build a house there, if it's pastureland or if it's forest, but literally you have to go through every single step of water use, nitrogen deposition, uh, and it and still we have problems. Yeah, and still there's lots and lots of problems. But it's a yeah, that's the how do you balance? Right. Well, no, you can. Well, there are ways. They only have a license for a amount of time. You don't get, even if you buy a house, it's called the kadaster rights. You don't buy a house for ever. If you buy a house, it's I think for 99 years is the longest, and that's for a house. So if you're a company, you will get a lease for like 25 years, and then you're heavily monitored. And after 25 years, the principality can say, "Oh, you know what? Your time is up. Thank you very much for your industry. Now say goodbye." Or we have new rules, and the new rules say you can only put so much nitrogen into the air, because a company will of course will have nitrogen or waste up to the levels that they're allowed to, because every gram of waste that they have to clean up is money. So the province can make stricter and stricter rules, and that's what we are doing. So the rules are getting stricter. Yay! That sounds like yay, but the stricter rules also means then, if you're like me and I do eat meat, things become more expensive. And then also, industry will move away from the Netherlands. It may go to Belgium or to Germany, where the rules are slightly less, or might even go further away. It might go to Brazil or to Argentina, where it's even less strict. We have to think then about solutions to all of this, but not in this project. This project, you just are going to focus on uh, on the environmental problems faced by the Loonse Duinen. It's well, your project, the ultimate goals is to just to see if it's happened, if it's true. Um, in the last, I have uploaded something, and next week you'll be talking with Nature Monuments. They're the people who are trying to restore the dunes. They've been worked on a multi-million-dollar European project to restore it, and it's taken many years and millions of euros to help. But you're not fixing the problem, right? So uh, but what they should also know, say for your nature monuments, and you don't get to say how much nitrogen the pig farmer can produce. But what you can do is say how much it's going to cost, how much land you need to clear every year. So if you in the study I showed you was 4 different years, but you guys are doing 2 or 3 really at the most. You can say, look, it's a linear problem, and that means we looked at over 50 years between point A and point B. The sand decreased 100 hectares, and then think about solutions and talk to the guys how they do it. They'll even show you. I'm sure he'll show you if you want. They have these huge diggers. They dig up the ground. They take chains and they smooth out the land. This costs millions of euros just for a little bit of restoration. So you could say our advice is, this is how much money it's going to cost every single year, because every single year so many hectares of sand is being depleted, and so nature monuments, this is how much money you have to ask Brussels, or you have to ask the province is based in Den Bosch. So you have to, pressure them to give you money, because if they don't fix the problem, this is the costs. And there are rules. And it's not like Nature Monument doesn't have any ammunition. Nature Monument, they're backed by this law called the Natura 2000. There's a European Commission that says you must protect these areas. So, and if the province doesn't do that, the Nature Monument can take them to the court and say, you signed this rule, you have to pay it. So, and of course, the province wants to keep it. It's beautiful, of course. If you ever go there, you'll see how beautiful it is. It's not a big fight. It's a problem. It costs lots of money. So, you are here is to help nature monuments, natuurmonumenten, if you want to know the Dutch word, in their nature park. So they are the non-for-profit group which actually take care of a lot of parks, including this nature park called the Loonse and Drunense Dunes. And it's a nature reserve in the Dutch province of North Brabant. It's if you ever heard of the Efteling, have you heard of the Efteling? The Efteling's it's like it's like Disney World. It's like the Dutch Disney World, the Efteling. It's just east of the Efteling. Actually, the Efteling is on the border of the western part of this. If you want to, well, I will definitely be organizing a trip to Loonse Dunes Down. Absolutely. If you also want to, you should actually go several times. I think go several times. I'll be there for at least one time, but you can go many times. And if you want to go to the Efteling while you're there, well, of course you can go to the Efteling. It's one of the biggest attractions in the Netherlands. For the newcomers from Brazil, you've probably never heard of it, but it's like Dutch Disney World. It's they have rides and they have little. Well, that's a little bit expensive. Okay, so the Lone Snoot Sedana is one of the largest dunes. It's 4,000 hectares. It's been open since 2002. That's when Nature Monuments actually bought it from. Nature Monuments owns this land, by the way. They're not just the people who are managing it. They actually own it. But that's one of the questions in the homework. What's the ownership construction? The park is dry sand dunes and pine forests, and it's actually part of a stream called the Zandlei. And here are some other parts. It's I'll let you guys look this up. It's just general information about the Lone Students Downa. As normal Wikipedia will tell you all of this. Excuse me. But nature monuments, what do? They monitor the quality of the sand dunes. So these are all things that you're doing. So you'll be monitoring the quality of the sand dunes to make sure it's intact. Looking evidence of human impact through nitrogen deposition. So looking at the subsequent ecological succession from sand to grass and from grass to forest. And then presenting this data that you're collecting for them. Here's the schedule of the project. So today is Wednesday of this week is the kickoff. On Friday, there is a computer workshop in the morning. It's in your schedule from 8:45 till 12:10 because of something I'll be telling you about shortly. But there'll be a computer workshop where we can talk about the project in general. I'll show you. You can use Google Maps. I have lots and lots of maps that you can use. Uh, we'll talk. We'll just have a workshop talking about the project on Friday morning. Monday morning is the tutor meetings. I have put up a wiki for the groups to make a tutor meeting on Monday morning. Tuesday, the first assignment is due for the project. No, no. So you have the course assignments and you have the project assignments. These are all individual. Of course, please help each other. I mean, you're not supposed to copy from each other, but it's help each other, please. It's better if you work together. There's lots of questions, so you can just use your own words, but of course work together. Wednesday, we will have the meeting with Lex. Lex Gradell is the name from Nature Monuments. No, so the assignments are different, Mareika. So you have the assignments for the class, which are very theoretical and very general. So in the class, we talk about greenhouse gases, all sorts of gases. We don't just talk about nitrogen. Nitrogen is part of it, but not everything. And this assignment is very specific. Questions are, where are the Loons and Dunes of Dauna? What have the Loons and Dunes of Dauna, what have they done in the last 4 years to restore the landscape? So these are very specific to the project. So there you go. Yeah, so many. um, Friday is again a computer workshop. This one will be more specific about using the aerial photographs and setting you guys up so that you can do some little bit of GIS work. It's not huge amounts of GIS work. In the first project, you had to make maps. In this one, you actually you're given the photographs and you just have to make an analysis of it. So you have to use GIS, but you're not making maps anymore. Although you can, if you want to make a map and put it in your report, by all means. But now you're going. Remember, we talked in cartography. You have different types of GIS. Yeah, you have GIS to make maps, reference maps, and thematic maps, and you have GIS to make analyses, not necessarily a map. So in the first project, you use GIS to make maps, and in the second project, just do the analyses. And to be honest, if you want to, you can do it on paper. You don't necessarily have to do it on GIS. You can print it out, do it the old school way, like we did when I was studying. You can print it out, draw on it, make polygons. If you know how to the scale of the map, you can just calculate it by hand. You don't necessarily need GIS. I would say use GIS. It would be actually a lot faster, believe it or not. It's a lot faster. Um, yeah, so that's this Wednesday, and also, I'm sorry, that's next Friday, the 3, 4, 5, 6. That's the 7th. Is the second computer workshop, and project plan is due also that Friday. You're getting a little bit of ahead of yourself about redos. The redos are also, all of this information is on Blackboard, obviously. Um, oh, you mean this one? Yeah, this should be December. Sorry. Yeah, this should be 1st of December. This is the last weeks, and yeah, the redos are actually not on the first. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it says these are weeks beginning on. So this is the Mondays, the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th. So the redos of the reports are on Friday, the 5th of December. So that's a Sinterklaas. Okay, but we're here. Also, the project plan is due that Friday. Yeah. The workshops are absolutely not mandatory. As you see, it's orange. Orange is for optional. Yeah. So project plan is due on that Friday. The 10th, we have again a tutor meeting. Unfortunately, there is no wiki yet because this is the beginning of the second period, and they have not released the roast, the agenda for second period yet. So I couldn't make a wiki, so I'm not sure exactly when they're planned, but it will be on Monday. And also there's a tips off session, so don't forget to turn in your tip top deliverable that day. Assignment 2 is due the 11th. On Wednesday, we will have a meeting with the KNNV. The KNNV, they are not the people who we're working with. That's Nature Monuments. We're working for Nature Monuments. They're our client. KNNV is also nonprofit, and the V stands for Veldwerk. So those are field work. It's the nature organization where there's of field biologists. So there'll be a field biologist to give us a training on Wednesday. So you'll be learning how to recognize different types of mats for invasive species in the sand dunes. But on this Wednesday, we will not be going to Loonsdrunsduinen. This will be here in Breda. In Breda, you probably don't know it, but there's a really beautiful sand dune just north of the city. Yeah, everyone's like, what? There's a really great sand dune just north of the city, near Oosterhout, is the name of the city. Yeah, it's really beautiful. So, and it's also close. We can bicycle there very easily. So on this Wednesday, we'll be working with some field biologists here in Breda, looking at sand dunes and identification of sand dunes. So it'll be a little training. However, that Friday was when I will be planning our first uh, group ouch excursion to Loonsdrunsduinen. Again, you don't have to come. It's optional, but the field work enhances your. I highly invite you to come with me. And if you don't come on this Friday, you can go some other day. Of course, you can go on a Saturday if you want. The park is open 24 hours, I believe. You can go there at night. It will be difficult at night and maybe a little bit cold. It's Google it. That's one of the first questions of your homework. Where is the park? It's east of here, near Tilburg. Yeah, Tilburg is the city. Yeah, to the east of here. And also that the theory report is due uh, that same day. Yeah, so the first project, your theory report was due on Friday. I was in one of the last weeks, and this project, because you only have one course, I'm moving the theory report up because you only have one other. Actually, by this time, I think you're done with your coursework. So, the theory report, individual. Yeah, the theory reports are individual, and it's due this Friday. And remember, the theory report is based on assignments 1 and 2. I don't ask you all these questions to make your life difficult. I'm actually asking you questions so that you can basically copy and paste them together in a nice report and call it your theory report. Which is also why the assignments are individual, because if you turn in one assignment for the entire group, then how are you going to make an individual theory report? Yeah. So the assignments are there just to give you structure for the theory report. Yeah. The fourth week, again, we have tutor meetings. You can use this entire week for your research, to use your computers to do, if you have to do some more analysis using GIS, more field work if you want to go out to identify, because you're giving this aerial photograph, but photographs are black and white. So normally you can tell, but there might be some things where you have questions. Is that a forest? Is that a mat? And if it's a mat, is it an old-fashioned mat, or is it one of the Campylopus? Yeah. So there you go. So you have this entire week. We're doing more computer work, more field work. This week, again, you have more time. Uh, However, on the Wednesday, you have two reports which are due. Your advice report, which is the group report, that's due on the 24th. This is 26th. The advice report is finished. Should be finished and turned in. But also your blog. Oh, I remember that at the very beginning of In the very beginning of the minor, I said in the second project you could be doing a blog rather than another report, because I think reports can be a little bit boring. And if you are going to apply for a job, are you going to send them a report? Or wouldn't it be nice to send them, oh, and by the way, here's a link showing all the work I did on a project. That's really cool. And that you can put on your CV. So this is also individual, but individual as a group. That sounds like nonsense. What you do is you have, this is another thing we'll be talking during these computer workshops. Yeah, don't laugh, don't judge me, Christian. Exactly, reports are so last year, last century even. So what you do is, I'll show you how to do it. It's actually very easy. There are several different blogging sites. What you do is you create within the blog separate pages. So you have the introductory page about your project, and then you have a page for example, Kaiva, a page for Natalia, a page for Christian, a page for each different person. Yeah, and then I give you an individual grade for your part of that blog, so I can see what you've done. So be creative, please. Make videos, use videos that you find from YouTube. Take pictures when you're in the field. Take pictures of your screenshots of your GIS work. So the more work you put into it, the higher the grade, basically. Yeah. When you again, your presentation is Friday. So wouldn't it be great if you could do like a screen capture like what I do of your presentation and put that also on your blog? Yeah, wouldn't that be nice? And then in December, sorry, it says November here, but this is 1 December. That Friday, all of the redos. So if you get a fail for your blog or your advice report or your theory report or your presentation, all of those will be due on December, Friday the 1, 2, 3, the 5th. Okay. No, the presentations are actually group presentations. No, pass fail. Well, eventually you get a grade from the theory report. Yeah. Yes. Yes. Well, they can also do on their own laptops. Well, I'll tape it for sure, no matter what. But quite often, students will, I mean, if you want to make, like, I've seen some really great videos of people about the projects. They don't just show the PowerPoint presentation; they actually show them pictures of themselves. So they're interviewing each members of the group. I mean, the more time you put into it, the higher your grade really is. Yeah, of course, obviously. So you can be very creative about your blog. I would like to see at least one video, for example, pictures, descriptions of what you've done. If you're in the field and you find Campylopus mats, take a picture. This is Campylopus, an invasive species. Yeah. And I think there's 2 more slides. Again, these are the percentage of the grades. The project plan is a group, which is just pass fail. The assignment 1 and 2 are individual. They are just pass fail. Advice report is a group report. It is given a grade, so you need a 5.5, 33% of your final grade. Presentation is group, pass fail. Your theory report is individual, it's graded, 33%. And your blog is individual, but as a group, you make one blog and then you separate them between individuals. And you also get a grade, and that's 34%. Yeah. And I showed people before. Here are the groups. So Hungry Games is the same because I want to give them the option for the Hungry groups, Hungry group, if you want to do this for Budapest, or is there somewhere near Budapest a nature that you want to do successions? You can also do that if you like. I'm not going to make you if you have a good idea, then you can do that. My suggestions, because I have everything. Yeah, I know. Kaiva told me she's like 75% of the time she's in your group, or the vice versa. Anyway, it was pretty random. Um, if you have a really great idea, but you have to think quick because the project plan is due next Friday. Um, And yeah, so you have to have your project plan due by next Friday for the Hungary group. My suggestion is just to do the Dutch one, but I can also imagine if I know Simona, she wants to go out and do the field work. So of course, that is a fantastic idea, Simona. I say, eesh. However, tomorrow morning is not so. I mean, very very early is not possible. I can do 10 o'clock. Is that okay, Simona? And Christina and Daniel. Oh God, 10:30, of course, 10:30. Okay, so 10:30.